Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Flesh and Blood, both as a game and as a community, are at a very exciting, important, and critical time in the game's life cycle and development. The game is no longer a new game, right? It's been out for closing in on 2 years, and with the recent announcements of all the high focus, high competitive stuff events, there's a lot of excitement in the game. The game is growing, from a player standpoint at least, at nigh unprecedented rates, and we're starting to expand as a community, right? We had the early adopters early on, and then you had your brave individuals who saw something good early get in, and now as the focus has become on not only locals growing and seeing people playing it, but also with the competitive announcements, we're seeing people of all levels and all backgrounds starting to come in and inquire about the game. Now, as you would expect of what we've seen historically in the Flesh and Blood community, I think overall people have been very welcoming to those new individuals. Here's welcome decks that we've constructed from commons. Here's some, chaff. Hey, I just opened my draft pack and I don't need this. Take it. All stuff like that. Learn to play events. Everything you would expect. However, at the same time, I've started to notice a division, almost an elitism. And that's why I think that right now, Flesh and Blood as a community is at a crossroads. And we should be asking ourselves, do we want Flesh and Blood to be like the other big games? Or do we want Flesh and Blood to be up there with the other big games, but different? And if what we want is for the game to be different, if collectively that's what we want, we need to remember the importance of the little guy. Hey folks, just real quick before we get into this, I was doing the editing for the episode and kind of realized that I use the term new player a lot interchangeably with what I really meant as, a casual player. And specifically, like, if I'm making gameplay of Azalea versus Kavdane, that wouldn't necessarily be something that a competitive focused player would care about. But you don't have to be a new player to care about that. I hope that distinction is there. So yes, I did use new player in a lot of cases, but what I generally meant was a casual player who's just interested in gameplay and learning and growing and having fun with the experience. So thanks for watching, and let's get into this. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. I'm Andrew with you here as always, and thanks for joining me. So before we get into this, right, I have to always start with stuff like this that tonight is an opinion piece, right? I'm talking about something that I feel, something that I think that we could be doing better. And those opinions are based on my observations, my own personal background, my own personal experiences based on what I've seen. You may have seen different things. You may interpret things differently. Completely fair, right? And I'd love to hear your perspectives, but remember that everybody has a right to their opinion in all directions, and that doesn't mean people are bad people. So to that end, I just kind of wanted to have a casual chat tonight. I've got a beer, and we'll sit and sip on it, and my plans to do this uncut. I have no script. So quick a housekeeping item, I suppose, but it kind of talks to what I want to talk about. So I went on vacation for a week. I had the Ranger Week thing go up. I know that some people enjoyed that. Others, didn't care because it was Ranger, and fair enough. But I haven't shot a fab piece since I've been back. And it's been a while, right? Because it has. And usually I do a couple pieces a week. So I've been having a really hard time wanting to sit, like I've got several topics I want to shoot, and every time I go to do it, I'm just like, I just don't
feel up to it. I don't feel like I can bring the level of excitement. And the reason I'm feeling that way is because I'm starting to feel a little bit in Flesh and Blood like there's a fair amount of elitism. And this isn't coming from the community as a whole, but it doesn't have to come from the community as a whole, right? And the elitism itself isn't I'm not saying, oh man, somebody was talking down, like that's not what happened, right? But what I'm starting to see is that, one of the things that I think the Flesh and Blood community has prided themselves on over the last year and a half or so was that they were different than the other games. And I'm starting to see that it's losing a lot of that. And especially, specifically what I'm talking about is I've seen I've seen individuals who are considered very respected, and they're good players. They're respected as players, they're respected as community members. People look up to them and respect what they have to say and listen to what they have to say. And one of these individuals went on my favorite Fab content creator actually went on their cast, and it was a hilarious. I mean, they always do a good job, but when they started talking about other Flesh and Blood content, he mentioned that he thought it was Flesh and Blood content in general was bad. Now, much of that was targeted towards a specific type of content creators, specifically the market stuff. And I tend to agree with that. We know that I don't focus on market stuff in general, right? But there were some other comments made that basically a lot of other stuff out there is teaching people how to do stuff, and I'm not interested in that. And, he also took a shot at Azalea, which again, you guys know I like. He's like, well, I know there's fanboys out there like it, but, I'm not interested in anybody who talks about her. And fair enough. I mean, he's entitled to watch the content that he wants, but to group those, I thought it was unfair to group. And of course, right? What you're thinking right there is like, oh man, well the two things you just noted were personal. Of course you took those personally, and I did. I mean, I didn't really take it personally. I mean, from like a personal shot standpoint, but it did raise some flags in that. If Fab content is bad, because, and to be very clear, I understand the line that was being drawn there. That's why this is more like, I don't think this is a that person type thing, but it was the elitism type comment of the Fab content out there isn't where it should be, and it's not doing what it should be. Specifically, the finance stuff, but also this stuff that's helping teach. It's showing people how to play the game or teaching some other aspect of the game. And at least from what I heard and how I interpreted it, I grouped in that, the stuff for new players is not good content. And that I'm sure that that's not what that individual meant directly. But it did get me thinking about that of, if you go out and you look at what's getting hits in terms of viewership and stuff like that, what's getting attention is not really new player stuff, right? And it doesn't have to have a new player tag to be considered a new player in this case. And perhaps I'm not doing a very good job of expressing myself, but what I wanted to talk about tonight, now that we're several minutes in, let's get to the point, right, is the importance of, even to the elitist, right? Or I shouldn't say elitist because that's a negative, but even to the top players, the reason that normies or casuals or weekend warriors or whatever you want to call them, those people are exceedingly important to a game's success. And they're important to the top player's success too. And you're like, well, that may sound stupid. I don't need a bunch of normies at, the Portland, Oregon casual event. Like, I don't need them. But every pack sold counts. And if you were to take, let's say, this individual and his play group are probably very, very, actually not probably, we know they're very, very good people, or very, very good players, very effective, right? But if you look at the top percentage of who's winning the top events, they're a very small percent. Well, we hope at least as the community grows that they will be a very, very small percentage of the overall game, of the overall sales, right? If you look at a Magic, let's say back in their Pro Tour days before everything got messed up, right? The number of Magic cards being sold by the people who were winning the top events was a 0.00 something percent. I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was the point is very, very small percentage, right? What's keeping the game afloat, what's growing the game, what's growing the company isn't just the top players buying 4 cases. It's Andrew at his shop buying a box and his 9 buddies buying a box, or they do a case split multiplied times millions across the globe, right? That is what keeps a company overall in business over the long term, right? I'm not talking what happens in a first edition Monarch side. Like I'm not microing that. I'm macroing what keeps a game and what keeps a game growing and making progress is the normal dudes who walk in and just buy a box, right? And I think that there's right now a fair amount of help to get those people in. The community at large is helping to get those people in. But then as soon as they're in, there's no place for them anymore, right? As they basically you can come in as a freshman, like in high school, right? I don't know if I assume every country has freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. I assume, I don't know, but you can come in as a first year, but there's no place for years 2 and 3. You immediately have to be a 4th year, right? That's the impression that I'm getting, and it's not just from this one event, but I'm starting to see it, right? It's further supported by, in my opinion, and we've talked about this at length here, that there's a huge, what's the right word? The anti-Blitz crowd has really been picking up steam over the last, I don't know, basically since Monarch dropped. I mean, yeah, I think that's fair because the Blitz decks, right? I mean, Crucible was Blitz focused, so a lot of people had that and then wanted to get in, and Blitz was, whether or not you believe the argument that it's cheaper or more attainable or whatever, it's more approachable, at least from a mental standpoint. Blitz was more approachable, and then the Blitz decks dropped. And then like 2 weeks after the Blitz decks dropped, it was like, Blitz is where you should be learning the game. Now you need to grow up and play Classic Constructed, right? So that in of itself sets up a barrier of like, oh, well, I got this to learn, but now I'm this dirty scrub because I play the place where I'm supposed to learn, right? So where's the jump there? Like, why can't you become good at Blitz without taking, from other people who are better that you can learn from, right? And that's like the catch-22 I said, right? It's like, hey, we're going to welcome you, get in, let's play. And now that you're in, you're not playing the right way. So that's the difference between accepting someone, or that's the difference between bringing someone to the community and making them a part of the community. I hope that makes sense. And that's why I say it's really been bothering me, because I think we're at a critical crossroads where we need to remember that even if somebody only wants to play Blitz for the rest of their life, that's okay, and we need them. And even if someone is a stupid Ranger player who is an Azalea fanboy, you should love that, because that's somebody who wants to buy the crap cards that you don't want, right? So from a single standpoint, it helps. From a pure sales to keep the company in business, or maybe you don't think the company is at risk of going into business, because I don't think LSS is, right? But it helps them grow by selling more boxes, or it drives prices up. Even if you're a finance guy, you should like the small guys, because again, it puts more demand on everything. It should bring, if 1 out of every 1,000 of new players becomes a collector, then it should help, right? So to have this, we need to get new players in, but then not support them. And maybe that's the wrong word, because I take that back. I still feel that we're bringing new players in and supporting them. I think the community does a fantastic job with the recruitment and the support. But I don't think that we are growing them very well currently. And maybe this is just a byproduct of the fact that because the competitive scene has really gotten new heights over the last couple weeks, maybe that's just a byproduct of that's where everybody's focus is. And maybe so. And yeah, a fair amount of these people are coming in. Not everybody who's coming into the game right now thinks that they're going to win a Road to Nationals. But a lot of the people coming in are interested in seeing what happens at those levels. They're looking up to these people. And if those people are immediately saying, oh, well, if you play Ranger, I know I keep getting hung up on that, right? But, oh, if you play this, you're not doing it right. Right? And so that's there. And then the last part is, there's been a lot of discussion around one of the things that's constantly come up in this game, and I've actually seen become worse in Monarch, is this feeling that you don't have to have Majestics and all the big cards in order to play the game correctly, and that I think that's a little disingenuous. Now there's two sides of that, and it seems that it's always both extreme, right? It's, well, you have to have all these super expensive cards, and Fab's really expensive. I mean, true, but I don't think it's as expensive as a lot of people are saying it is, right? And actually, the day I shot this, the professor came out with a video, and he kind of justified that point. I think he went a little too far, because the game of Flesh and Blood plays very, very, very different when you have the big cards and when you don't. And, I've been like Dane from Outcast Haven, he's come on before and we've debated that point, and he's like, you could take the best player and they could probably beat you with one of the, a deck with only commons and rares. And I agree. I've actually seen it happen in one of the online tournaments that we ran for Gongai. A very good player played the Dorinthea starter deck and actually took down a constructed Viscera deck, right? So yes, that's fair to a point. On the other hand, right, the reason I said I think it's become worse in Monarch is I challenge I'm not physically challenging someone here, right? But I challenge the concept that Boltyn could play equally well now, right? Any of the Monarch heroes really, but Boltyn is just the one that came to mind, right? I challenge that Boltyn could play just as well without access to Lumina or without access to Raiden or something like that, right? So whereas the Welcome to Wrath heroes probably are a little better with that because they're a lot more functional, I feel that the Monarch heroes and even some of the there's cards in Crucible that are needed but those would be Majestics, right? But again, to my point, I don't think that the same thing exists, right? If somebody decides tomorrow they want to pick up Boltyn, I don't think they can do it to the same extent that they could pick up Dorinthea. Now you could say, okay, well then just play WTR, fine, but what if they don't want to, right? Part of what's coming in to this is, hey, this guy looks really cool, I want to play this guy. Oh, well, you can't play Bravo because you really need tectonic plating, because you kind of do, right? Whereas you could play maybe Dorinthea without the bracers, right? So I think that this thought that, well, you can play it for cheap, you just go pick up the Blitz deck. You can, but the Blitz deck plays very, very, very differently than the actual game of Flesh and Blood. And to back up my point, the Outcast Haven guys had a cast just last week where they were talking about, they were debating, making the jump from Blitz to Constructed, and I forget the exact context, but Blake made a really good point. He's like, hey, you know how when you play Constructed and you're new at it and you use all your big cards early, you have a really hard time closing out the game. And it's a really good point. He's right. You have to eventually learn to, pitch your big cards so they're there at the end of the game. But now I challenge, what if you don't have those big cards, right? You get into that endless block scenario that, we all were in when we started the game. So I think I backed up my statement there. Again, I'm not saying you need, a $10,000 deck, but I do challenge the assumption that you can just pick up a Blitz deck and play Fab as it was meant. I think you run into some problems, especially when you only have like one via the Vanguard in a Boltyn deck. So, yeah. And then, I don't think it's a secret. One more thing that I'm going to get out of here because I'm already like 22 minutes. But one of the things that I think, you guys know that I've been bothered by the anti-Blitz crowd. And it's not because, and again, to be very, very clear to out there who haven't seen it before, I agree 100% that Classic Constructed is a better, well, let me say it this way. I agree 100% that Classic Constructed is a fundamentally more balanced, controlled, and tactical game. I think it's clearly the way Fab was meant to be played. I mean, there's no argument there. That's not even my statement, right? It's the fundamental game. It's more balanced. It allows for a lot more give and take and a lot more tactical actions. Blitz, sometimes you just get the wombo combo, right? I fundamentally believe Classic Constructed is the better way. Better is such a subjective, but it's the better game, right? But it doesn't mean that Blitz is bad. And that's the other part kind of feeding into my, well, sometimes people just want to play heroes. I have a Kassai deck that I've been aching to play, right? And I haven't been able to play it in the, between my vacation and then coming back and then, just life and the fact that, I can't jam games every day like some of these people do. I haven't been able to play my Kassai deck because we've been playing CC, right? Because of Road to Nationals and stuff. And to that end, right, that's kind of my point in this elitism thing is like, man, I came in because I was really excited about playing Kassai, but nobody in my locals wants to play Blitz anymore because A, they're training for Road to Nationals, and B, they think I'm a filthy scrub. They say I'm a filthy scrub and I need to grow up and play CC, but I can't play CC with the hero that I wanted to when I got into this game. All right, had to do a cut there. So I think the takeaway, without going into too much rambling here, is we need to remember, right, even from a purely Machiavellian point of view, right, of how does it help me, right? How does it help what I want out of the game? New players have value, and I think we all understand that new players have value because we all want new players, right? But we're at this crossroads of what do we do with the new players? How do we treat those new players? Do we accept them to be part of the community, or are they just there as part of the game? And I think that's where Flesh and Blood, the community, has a crossroads type. They have an opportunity, right? Flesh and Blood, we have an opportunity to be as big and be here. The average shelf time of a game is like, I think it's 3 and change years. At least that's what it was back when I was in the industry, which was a while ago. But we have an opportunity. Fab will make it there. I'm confident Fab's going to make it there. Like, I think Fab's got a bright future. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here talking about it, right? But Flesh and Blood, do you want it to be up there with the other games and different, or do you want it to be like the other games? And I think by and large, if you were to ask the average person who's at least been here pre-Monarch on average, I think the majority of them would say, I want this game to be something different and something special. And a huge part of that is the community. Having scenarios where community leaders, respected players, whatever it may be, having situations where those individuals indirectly or directly or whatever take actions that make the normal person feel like they don't have a place in the game beyond the kitchen table, I think is short-sighted, and I don't think that's what any of us want. So, like I said, that's what it's been troubling me that to a certain extent, I don't know, like I feel there's a lot of people out there in the community that don't feel I have a place in the community. I'm trying to go to Vegas, but it may not happen, right? And if I don't go to Road to Nationals, does that mean that individuals are going to say, well, you didn't go to Road to Nationals, you don't even have a right to be a Fab content creator? Could absolutely happen. And I don't know that that's true, right? And again, I'm not trying to get too focused on the content creation point, but if I do a week talking to Ranger players, and then if I do a new player video talking about pitching correctly or setting up your hand correctly, does that mean that I'm not part of the Fab community, right? Or that I don't have a place in it? And I think that, obviously we're focused on me here, but I think that applies globally is, Fab content creation is bad because it's too new player focused. Fab content creation is bad because there's not enough advanced focus stuff. Well, but again, the advanced focus is such a small percentage of the population. The larger pool, at least we hope, will be your average player, right? Because that's what's good for the community. So I think it's very interesting that we're seeing this trend. What we really need to do is figure out how to convert, do a great job. Do a great job of pulling in new people. We've seen it time and time again. The data's there, right? Things are growing, new people are coming, and we just need to keep them and then turn them into the community, and then we're there. Because then they're going to keep bringing in more people, and before we know it, Fab's too big. Fab's too big, baby. But that's a good thing. All right, so last comment, and then we'll get out of here, right? Last thought. Flesh and Blood is still young, and it's still growing, and it is at that spot right now where we are pulling in people like crazy. And if we as a community come forward and project the air. And remember, negative emotions are strong, right? You can have 99 positives and one bad thing happen, and you'll remember the bad thing that happens, right? That's very, very powerful. And if someone comes in and as they start to get excited and grow in the game, run across the feeling that they don't have a place in your game because they're just a kitchen table player or whatever. If they feel that they don't have a place in your game, they're going to go elsewhere with how young Flesh and Blood is. And that's not something that I think any of us really wants. So anyway, that's my piece for tonight. I do apologize. I'm going to have to go back and do some edits just from stutters and all that. But I wanted to thank you for hearing me out. I'm curious to hear your responses. Hopefully they'll be kind. I don't know. We'll see. And again, every community is different, and everyone's perceptions and interactions are different. So hopefully yours are better. But again, I want to be very clear on the focus. The focus isn't that we're not pro new player. We are. The issue is, do we want to be like other games where you go up to the Friday Night Magic table and a bunch of dudes look at you and kind of like go, you don't deserve to be here. Is that who we want to be? Or do we want to be the place where the guy comes with his Blitz deck and you're like, hey, let's trick this out. Let's learn how to play. Right? Who do we want to be? Who do we want to be? Thanks for joining.